All right, so the theory behind this research is cultural sustaining pedagogy. It comes from teaching. And so Paris and Aline spent probably the last 5 years really fleshing out what does it mean to be cultural sustaining when we're teaching students in the K-12 world. So my background is in the K-12 world. I was an elementary school teacher for 12 years and then a principal for 9 years, all of it in a predominantly Latinx population for students, also in the urban core. So really, what do we do to help our students succeed came from this, just this experience with students that really struggled to be successful in a predominantly white institution when they get to college. So, okay, it worked 5 seconds ago.
I might have messed it up.
You jinxed it.
I tested it. Will you just advance us to the next slide? There we go. So here's our current reality. We know that our student population is changing. It will be a majority of Latinx students in the very near future in our K-12 world. We know that we are doing a better job of recruiting Latinx students at the university level. We get them in, specifically we meaning UMKC. We get them here, we get them started, we can't get them graduated. So we, and I'm saying we, UMKC, started a program in 2011 to address that, and it's a partnership between the Hispanic Development Fund and UMKC, and they have done an amazing job with this program called Avanzando, which all of these people right here are part of, and the result of. And so I really wanted to take a look at what they were doing right, because their graduation rate is over 90%. And that opposed to the graduation, yeah, say that louder.
That's good.
That's impressive. It is very impressive. Other universities are spouting graduation rates of 23, 35% of those students that enroll, so it's huge. So I kind of combined both my loves and decided to look at what are we doing right that really helps our students succeed, and how does that compare to this great pedagogical theory that we have in education K-12 to see if there's some merit to looking at a cultural sustaining mentorship model. And so that's
Are you going to be able to share your PowerPoint so we can take it? Okay, thank you.
And we are recording.
That's perfect.
Yep. All right. So if you'll take us to the next slide. What we're going to do right now is I'm going to give you a brief overview of the study and what I looked at. These were my 2 research questions. And then I'm going to take myself out of the equation and let you talk to the people that actually do this. So we have 3 mentees that are going to come and tell you a little bit about their experience, what was successful, what helped them through. Then we're going to have the viewpoint of the mentors, and then you'll get to talk to the program director also. So that's what I was looking at. What practices are successful and how do those align with this cultural sustaining pedagogical theory? Next slide, please. So here's the history. It is a partnership. It was established, and this is the Avanzando program. It was established in 2001. It really wanted to focus on retention and graduation, and then that transition into the next step. So we get them graduated from college, but what does that mean? So if they're going to go straight into a career, that's great. We want to help them through the job interview, to getting their first job, through making it successful into where they want to be, or graduate school. The statistics for Latinas in graduate school is awful. Just because it's low. We know these people are leaders and we want them to be in graduate school and then go on to the next. When you look at the percentage of faculty that are Latino or Latina, 4% nationwide, 4%. So 96% are something other than that, you know, so it's just staggering when we look at that. So
2011. You said 2009.
Oh, it is 2011. Yes, sorry, 2011. Thank you. So the program components briefly are: there's a one-to-one support. The program director really takes a very intensive and invasive, in a good way, very deeply vested in each student to make sure they get what they need. There's some exploration of careers that's offered by the program. They get them connected to mentors in both campus and community aspects. And then there's a research component that goes into it there. We know there's lots of research now that says if you can engage your undergraduates in research, that gives them a much greater potential to go on to graduate school, and it also gives them a greater potential to graduate with an undergraduate degree. So those are all components of the actual program. So next slide. Here were the themes of practices that came out. So I interviewed the mentees, I interviewed the mentors, and then I went through and I pulled out what is a practice? What is something that we do in this program that helps them be successful? And there were three almost chronological themes of practices. One was at the very beginning. This was really, what does the program do? So the program develops this almost brand. It is a recognizable, identifiable group. When you say on campus, Avanzando program, people get an image of what that means, okay? They know what Avanzando is. The students inside know what that is. And one of the things that I talk about all the time with this is Margie, who's the program director, never talks about her students. She never talks about the undergrads. She talks about her scholars. And they are branded at the very beginning. These are Avanzando scholars. And every time she refers to them, that's how she refers to them. It's never our Latinx students. It's never, you know, those students. It's always our Avanzando scholars. And that is super important in identifying to that group. And it makes it very identifiable. And that came out time and time again about how important that was. It also takes recruiting. So they don't just magically show up on her door. There is a process that students can apply for a scholarship, and part of that scholarship is they are automatically invited to join Avanzando. We have this outside group over here that's starting to what's the word I'm looking for? Refer. So they're finding out people are Avanzando scholars. They want to be too, so they wander into Margie's office and ask about the program. And then there's events that when you walk into the room, there's banners on the side that say Avanzando. It's a beautiful presentation of the event, but it's very identifiable. And those are super important because mentees talk about how that gave their parents, their grandparents, aunts, uncles, the kid next door, everybody, kind of this idea of what Avanzando was about. So those things were very much that beginning, how students get invited and incorporated and involved in the program, and those are super important. The middle ground was kind of this developing the relationship. It shifted from kind of a big programmatic look at it to what really goes into the relationship between the mentor and the mentee. And there were certain practices that really were important into developing that partnership. And then at the very end, this is where people most typically think about mentoring, where, you know, it's more experienced, more knowledgeable person transferring that knowledge to somebody who's brand new into the, and how does that go about? And then we share our personal contacts and stuff. That is important, and how that goes through the process really is kind of the icing on the cake, but everything that builds up into that really lays that foundation to how successful these mentoring relationships can be. All right, so moving on. Cultural sustaining pedagogy. You have to understand a little bit about the theory. It has 5 tenets, 5 principles, and those are the critical centering. So this became really important is how do we look at every decision that's made in this program to be centered on the people it's supposed to be, which most often is our mentees. And then there's the student and community input and engagement. So how do we capitalize on that community cultural wealth? How do we get everybody involved? How do we take everything that we know and value and move it into this program and utilize it? The third thing was the historicized content and instruction. And this is where that very first piece, where we look at how does the program do this, that became really important. We have staff and faculty members across the university that are deeply invested in this because of what they know about the university and the Kansas City region and how they really want to build this relationship with our Latinx community so that we can support and give back. So it's not just what happened in 2011, it's what happened the 10 years before that, 20 years before that, going back to where Kansas City became very segregated on the Truce line. You know, all of that knowledge comes in and influences how this program is set up and should. I mean, we've got to understand that. But also into that, where does that take us in the future? So Kansas City is really into developing the next 10, 20 years to be very culturally vibrant in the downtown area. So how does that work into it too? And where is it that our students want to go and what do they want to do? So then this next tenet, the capacity to contend with internalized oppression, but I'll save that because that became just an amazing insight into this program. And it really is. All of us know we come to college, especially to a predominantly white institution, and there's going to be issues. So how do we deal with that? How do we navigate that whole thing? Transitioning from a small high school where you know everybody into a large college is hard for anybody. But when you're transferring in and then all of a sudden you're faced with a lot of different expectations without your same support systems, that can be really challenging. So that became very important. And then within this theory, the last thing is, can you take all of those first four and curriculize it to support learning? Can you take them all and intertwine them and interweave them so they become a really solid set of principles that you can use? If you'll notice the colors throughout the thing, they're always overlapping and intertwining. And that really was a purposeful, because I'm very visual, a purposeful choice for me because that's the way I see these 4 or 5 tenets that they've got to overlap, intertwine. It's almost like weaving, you know, you can't have one with the other. There's not one standalone component. They all interrelate and rely on each other. All right, one more, and then I think here's how it came out. So these are the 10 mentoring practices. We divided them into 3 things. There's 10 of them that really are the solid base of the success of this program. And then the X's are the 5 tenets and how they align. So the first one is the student community agency and input. If you see at the very top, there's a very definite strength in that theme. So part of the program and how it was set up is there's an advisory board with the Hispanic Development Fund. There's support here at the university. There's input from a lot of different people. Margie does a great job of bringing mentors in and having this whole inner community there. All of that is not just one person making all the decisions. It really is a collaboration. Now, when you move down, when it becomes just the mentor and the mentee, some of that doesn't come out as clear. And I think it's still there. It just didn't come out as a solid strength. When you go to the critical centering, you see kind of a shift from really being a strength in building that structure to really being a strength in developing the relationship. Our mentors and mentees really center on what is it they need and what is it the mentees want. And so some of it still depends on that pairing and how well they navigate that, but it did come out as a strength. If you look in the middle, here's that critical centering on internalized oppression. Every single practice has that embedded in it, and they talk about it. And that's why I say it became a very clear strength of this program, is that we talk about how do we navigate through, how do we do this, how do you do that, how do you get a job, how do you decide if you want to go to graduate school. All of that is backed and integrated into what are going to be the challenges you face and how do you get through that. And so that really became kind of a clear outcoming of this. And then the historicized content is spread kind of throughout the whole program. So the last one, curriculized for learning. In the theory, you have to have the first four. So there was only one of the practices that had all four of those. So we could say it had the fifth one. Okay, now understand that's not a criticism of the program. We're looking at a theory that was developed for K-12 teachers. And now we're looking at it to see, does it hold value for mentoring? So go to the very next slide. So my thought was it does because all 10 of the key practices aligned with at least 2 of the cultural sustaining pedagogical theory principles. One of them aligned with all of them. And you could say that's kind of by chance, except I know Margie a little bit better than that, and I'm sure there was some intentionality in that piece. But all 10 of them align with this capacity to contend with internalized oppression. And really and truly, when you talk to some of our people today, you'll hear how that mentoring program is centered around that. How do we help our students be successful? Does that make sense? So that's a really fast overview of how this all came to be. But really what's more important for you to understand and hear is the personal stories of this. So I am going to ask our mentees to come up and just do a short introduction of yourself, and then maybe a brief thing about what you really got from the mentoring through the Avanzando program. And then maybe one challenge about, what was it that was really challenging for you? All right. And then you guys will be able to ask questions. Do you want to move up and join us just a little bit more?
So I guess I'll start. My name is Dara. I just graduated in May, I guess. And I was a criminal justice and French double major. And I'm going into law school here soon, so in the fall.
Hi, my name is Belinda Martinez, and I am a sociology and history major. And this is my 3rd year, 2 more years to go.
Hello, my name is Alicia Rodriguez. I also just graduated this May with the secondary education degree, and I'll be teaching Spanish starting this fall at an urban high school, which is what I was looking for.
That's good.
So I guess one of the questions was what we got from the program. So for me, I think my most meaningful thing that I got from the program was connections. So she was talking about building relationships is really important. I was able to, I was one of the people that just marched into, Margie's room and just went in there. I was like, I want to be a part of this. But no, she connected me to so many different people. As I was explaining to her that I wanted to go into law school and continue with my career, she opened so many doors for me. I have a mentor who's an immigration lawyer, and she has been able to also connect me with different people, as well as help me in the process of applying to law school and doing all of that good stuff. So I think that's one of the major things that I really enjoyed about the program, just because I have other friends that may not be Latinx community members, but they're still kind of I don't know how to just go out and find internships, but it's kind of the internships came and knocked on my door, which is really nice. So yeah.
Yeah, so same here. A lot of it was a lot of connections that I made through it. My mentor was one of the big connections I made because she led me to a lot of the things that I wasn't sure I could accomplish. She introduced me to research opportunities, and that introduced me to a lot of traveling and getting to know what it's like what it would be like to be a graduate student and have to present in different places.
I want to mention your mentors are UKC faculty.
Yes, she is. Dr. Torres at the Latinx Studies department, which is has been such a big part of me and my growth, because of learning that there are Latinos that are successful, and having that faculty be there and physically see them in my classroom teach me has been a big part of it as well. It's connected me to other Latino students, and I've learned that I have a passion for like recruiting people and letting people know that they have resources. And so it's been connections to my peers, the faculty, and to like a national level as well. Yeah, that's just a little bit. I can ask questions.
For me, well, I first was introduced to Avanzando and to the whole mentoring program when I transferred. I went to Donnelly College, and I was familiar with it in KCK. I graduated there with my associates. I received the scholarship, the Hispanic Development Fund, and that's how I automatically knew about Avanzando. And that same day, I approached Margie and asked her some information. I came to the summer enrichment program, which I got to meet a lot of the Avanzando people, and I got to make connections with other Latino on the campus before I started coming here, which was also really helpful too, knowing that there was people like me who were like first generation as well. Then I was introduced to my mentor, which is Dee Marks. She also helps, she works at the School of Education where I attended this last 3 years. There she was always connecting me with, for example, she helped me to get a job there at the School of Education. I was able to be working on campus. I had to meet a lot of the faculty, which made it so much easier. Like she mentioned that a lot of my classmates were not like, did not look like me, did not talk like me, and having that opportunity to get to know the teachers, the faculty and stuff from the School of Ed helped me a lot. Also, this last semester, my student teaching semester has been the hardest of my life. And she was there always supporting me, and until us actually this week, we actually met again just to talk about how we're doing, how if I need any help, and just to get caught up in anything that might come up. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about the program, especially having that support that she has given me as a first generation student who's not really familiar with the whole university. And I'm trying to do that with my brother who's coming along.
I think that's a really interesting point because so it's not just once you graduate, you're done with the mentoring thing. It's like throughout your time, like throughout life, I guess. So I think, yeah, I really like that part as well. What was the other question?
Any challenge?
I don't know. I think my biggest challenge was kind of staying connected with Margie because sometimes it was, the whole semesters I was really busy, but she would always just email me and I was like, can I come in this time and stuff like that. So I think just making sure that I met with Margie, so making time to like go out and like seek for her help was my biggest problem, just because of how busy I was, and I always talked to her about my semesters and how I was.
Yeah, sorry.
You can ask me.
Yeah, there's
I'm trying to
something to
think.
say.
Challenges, there's not a specific challenge that I can identify concerning the whole mentoring program in Avanzando. It's kind of the opposite. Whenever we faced a challenge, they were there to support us. And for example, I remember fall semester, I was also doing my student teaching. It's really weird how to explain it, but I was going through a really, really hard time. And luckily, she reached out to me, Margie, and I came to her office. I talked to her, I cried in front of her. But just being able to have that person outside of your house. For example, my parents, they support me all the time, but they are not really familiar with the whole university process, what we go through and all of that. And having those Margie and my mentor, Dee, at school who know kind of what I'm going through, and being able to give you valid, just, I don't know, advice that can actually help you, it's really, really beneficial. Yeah, and it helped me. I graduated, and I'm here.
Right. I think same here. Like it's, we faced obstacles, but the mentorship program mostly helped us with it. As you mentioned, I also went to Margie's office and I was like, oh my God, Margie, I don't know what to do in my life right now. And she's like, you know what, like you can do this. Just get through it day by day, and really encourage and understanding a lot of the cultural background to what I was facing. Because I've gone to professors before and they kind of give me advice and I'm like, I can't do that. That doesn't relate to my culture. So it was good. It's good to have somebody that can really understand and not just give you a broad idea of what you can do.
You guys have questions?
Yes.
Good.
How did you get to the university?
All of us?
But I would like to know, for example, from being a Latino first generation, how was your journey to high school, and how did you decide to go to college?
I attended Sumner Academy in Kansas City, Kansas. So like it was kind of like a magnet school, and it's like a college prep school. So and my family has always been like very supportive and they want me to, continue. And like, so it's a lot of like family support and everything. So I always knew that I wanted to go to college, and like, I knew about like scholarships and stuff like that. So thankfully I had a good like understanding of kind of like the college process, and things that I didn't know. Like I would either ask Margie or like whoever that has gone through this before, even if they weren't in like my family. So I had a pretty like easy like breeze into college. Like when I started college, it wasn't like hard for me, and I've always loved learning. So that's why I'm going into law school and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I've been in KCK for a while now. I came to the United States when I was like 9. So I had to learn English and everything. And just from there on, I've always been like, I love learning and, family. And I think the Avanzando program is really good at like keeping students here and creating that like family relationship with like students like us, to make sure that we have that connection to campus, to make sure that UMKC is our second home. So I think like high school did a good job into bringing me here, but I think Avanzando really kept me here.
Could you explain like a little bit of how that actually happened? Like the actual, did you have events? How's
like,
this family feeling and connection between the scholars created?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that really connected me was, as she said, the summer enrichment program. That's when like I felt like the first like connection when I first came in, because I came in like I think during like spring semester type of thing. So it really connected me to the other students. It was I think 3 days or something.
It's ranged from 2 to 5. So
And
depending on what year
Avanzando
you
is the one that organized that enrichment.
Yeah.
So it's only for Latino kids?
I believe so, yeah.
It's focused just on our Avanzando scholars, and part of the focus of that program is in reflecting on identity, identifying cultural attributes and strengths, kind of affirming, trying to counter the message that, we feel that, there's a lot of messaging that says you don't belong. You don't belong in this country, you don't belong on this campus, you don't belong,
You are not good enough.
And so really trying to counter that and help students connect with each other, as well as all students come to orientation, but we were trying to make even deeper connections, like work with, go to the library and do the scavenger hunt and meet your personal librarian and meet folks in career services that can help you develop your resume and do some practice interviewing. Trying to take it a little bit more than just what you get in just a traditional orientation.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, and like just not just the summer enrichment program, but throughout like the year, the whole different events for not just us, but our families as well, to kind of get them to know more about what we're going
And that was
through.
in the senior year in high school, or?
I
When?
think there's some that there's like high school students that can come to campus, but most of the time it's like us and like college type of thing.
But my question was a little bit more, we have a huge problem with high school graduation. And before they can come to college, we need to help the students to graduate. Do you have any help when you was in high school? Or it was the help from the university while you were in high school? How did you pick the right classes? How do you know how many credits do you have to graduate? How do you navigate that part of your life?
Well, I was very lucky. I'm a Coffin Scholar, so I received a scholarship since 8th grade all the way to
8th grade.
until I graduated college. So I've had this mentorship program with me since I was in middle school, and that's what really had me in the mindset of I'm going to college. I have it paid for, which was really what motivated me, not having to worry for the financial aid of it. But a lot of it was a lot of monthly events that was like that involved our parents. It was like, what's going to happen when your child goes to college? What's it going to be like when you're not there to supervise them, or workshops on filling out the FAFSA, or that process of like enrolling into classes. So maybe, yeah, just having that mentorship there, that program, which would be a great way to help. If we could combine them to help our ensemble get into high schools and maybe model some of the same programs that I have.
What is the name of the program in high school?
It's an organization. It's Coffin Scholars.
Scholars.
Yeah, they're in their last years, but it's
Kaufman is a local foundation, right?
it's a local
Wow,
foundation,
that's great.
and it had like 6 classes, and we're ending for 8 classes. But that's really what got me in the mindset of hey, you're gonna go, and this is what you have to do. Helping a lot of the inner city children or kids go to college. That's great. Yeah, they're amazing. But I was really lucky, and I wish that this could extend to more students, or maybe even focus on Latino students. Even if we can't provide the financial part of it, we can aid in like FAFSA and the process of writing scholarships.
Yeah, in my case, I didn't have that when I was in high school. I wish I had something like the Common Scholars. I have friends who were in that. However, I didn't have the support. Like I said, I graduated from Vision Ward High School, which is a Catholic school in KCK as well. And next door is Donnelly College. So I was really scared of going away from my house, going to school, but I still knew that I wanted to go to college. She migrated, I was 10 years old when I migrated. I lived in California, and there I saw my parents, they work in the fields. That was a big motivation for me to go to school. We moved here to Kansas City, and my parents still had to work at warehouses and just have really humble jobs, you can say that. And just looking at them like every single day when I came home, how tired they were, how hard they worked for us to have the basics, I guess. That was one of the biggest motivation for me too. You have to go to school. We came to the U.S. for a reason, and you just, that was me to myself saying that you had to work and go to school and try to help your parents out and try to make them work a little less than what they have been working all their life. My dad worked in the field since he was 18, and just having that background has pushed me, and it's kind of pushing me to push my brother because he's really hard-headed. But I'm trying to help him out.
Those are boys. I have one at home.
And that was one of the biggest. And like I said, I went to Donnelly College, which was right next to my school. At first, I was kind of embarrassed because a lot of my friends went away to Fort Hays, Missouri University, Mizzou. Yes. And for me, it was kind of embarrassing at first, but then I figured out, you're doing your thing, just keep working hard, get your associates. And once I got my associates, I decided to move to UMKC, not too far away either. But I came to UMKC here. Once I got to know Avanzando, it pushed me even more. I remember the very last day of the summer enrichment program. It was like families come together and they receive like the little, like a translator. They put their headphones on and they just hear the program in Spanish. And my mom was so happy and so excited to be able to have that, because she will attend to my school, like Bishop Ward High School, to meetings and stuff. She will not be able to understand what was really going on. But when she came and she received also some meetings for like how to support your students in college and all of that, she was like, Alicia, you're in the right place. You couldn't choose a better school than here, because I feel like they take us, they appreciate your family, they support your family.
We understand your culture.
Yeah, and their culture. And that was another thing that I really liked from Avanzando as well. And yeah, like I said, just having my family background and being able to fight for, I guess, my dreams and my family's dream. And I'm now a graduate from college, which is one of the main things that my parents migrated here to the U.S.
And employed to start your first teaching.
No. That's wonderful.
Very nice. All right, we're going to transition out from
Can I
Ninjas.
ask,
Absolutely.
Since I'm the only boy here, I gotta.
Yeah, I was trying to think about gender thing here, gender balance.
It's almost a statement or two of encouragement. I'm in the city, I'm in the Chicago area, with the city colleges, and just two quick points. One, when I was a president of Hispanic MBA, which is a national organization encouraging those to go on the business programs, right? Because we also work with the lawyers.
To know each other.
Yeah, we ran, and networking is important, right? We ran a program called Summer Enrichment Program, really, same name, with the PAW, and part of what we did in our organization is we raised a lot of funds for, from private donors, Kraft, Sears, Motorola, other big players in Chicago, to go to the high schools to work with Latino kids, to expose them. We had kind of curriculum for the summer, and we'd take them out and they would visit corporations, and we would get them in front of many speakers, and just a way of networking. 100% all went to college when they went through our program, and we would probably run about 20, 25 every summer with the Paul's help, our university. And then we would follow them to make sure how things going. So it wasn't just a handoff. We'd find that they ended up in some of these corporations who were partners with us. But me personally, growing up in the Boys and Girls Club was interesting, because I had Puerto Rican community, a lot of gangs, low income. I had a male white mentor at the club who kind of kept me straight. And had a baby young, so I had to go to school at night. So it took me 10 years to do undergrad. So, kudos to you all, do it right away, the right way to do it. And then when I get into college, I had a Jewish doctor who said, hey, what about some master's degree? What about some PhD stuff? Which I didn't have in my community because my parents went to college, same similar stories, just different locations, right? But I remember that taking a lot of that now at the city colleges, we're trying to figure out where Hispanic Studies Institute, 60% Latino students, majority of our faculty is white, and administration, we're kind of culturalizing that a little bit now, but trying to figure out how do we mentor students. We can only do so many ourselves. We kind of pushing people to go on to business school or law school. And we're learning a little bit about how to have these conversations when you're not Latino, or understand, I don't say the baggage that comes with it, the things you bring to college with
The
you.
asset.
Yeah, the assets, better. But I love programs like this because Now you're kind of charged to do the same thing, right? And maybe not formally, but informally, through your brother and everyone else, you become kind of a go-to. So I love this. I would just encourage you all, if you haven't already, and I'm not familiar with the university, but that there's also private dollars. I mean, universities can only support so much, right? Having students go out to talk to companies really work for us, because they get passion and understanding. They want to give back, some of the community minded, and that kind of worked well. So I didn't want to take too much time, but other than kudos for you to do this kind of stuff, to recognize these programs work, and then now you kind of, the burden's on you a little bit to surround, support your community through these kind of things at colleges, universities, or elsewhere.
Yeah, we work together. All right, Margie and Viviana, do you want to go up together and just do a real brief thing and talk
That
about
was wonderful. Thank you.
be a little more efficient?
Yeah.
You'll just go ahead and introduce yourself and your role, and then a little bit about your experiences with the program.
So my name is Margie Datweiler, and I have the privilege of serving as the lead for the Avanzando program. I came to UMKC in 2005 and to the Division of Diversity and Inclusion in 2010, and this program was developed with the support of that division in partnership with UHDF.
I am Viviana Grieco. I am faculty in the history department. I am an associate professor, and I'm part of the founding members of Avanzando. I first heard about this program when it opened, and I was totally drawn into the idea, and I have witnessed its growth and success. So I'm thrilled to be here. Anyway, so Dee asked us to consider the major points that we regard as drivers of the success of the program, and I have been interviewed by Dee for her research. And beyond what the scholars have already presented, I could add that from the mentor point of view, the success of the program has to do with the matching. This is not a comprehensive one-size-fits-all, even though we get the support to think about issues that we may not have thought as mentors. We do get to match one-on-one, so you get to follow up with your mentee and develop that unique relationship. So your mentee gets to know you well, and you get to know your mentee also really well, right? And so that matching get us out of the, well, this is general advising here, right? And I would like to say that even though our Avanzando scholars have many things in common, through my experience at the program, I can say that they're all different as well, and that's why it matters to understand their differences, right? And so one of my mentees was a first-generation college student who also fulfilling her household's many other roles, such as the translator for her grandma when she went to the doctor, right? And now I have another one who is not a first-generation college student, who has an incredible support in her house from many of the adults who have gone through college, yet she's enjoying this experience from a completely different point of view, and it's strengthening her as a scholar as well. And so we do have diversity within this group as well, and it's important to support them all. And again, we can talk about, again, I can't repeat what the scholars have already said. This is important not only for recruiting them as students at UNKC, but also to get them through the programs, increase their retention and graduation rates, and clearly Avanzando works. And one of the issues I would like to add is that Scholars get to talk about their experiences among themselves. So obviously when they show up at Marchie's door without being called up, they heard about the program and they heard about the success. And so I think that that's more important than having us as mentors or having Marchie as the program director to go and reach out. When students come from the bottom up and say, you know, this is worth it, this is a great experience, and it helped me in these many different ways. And beyond the branding issue, which is also important because, you know, they get to identify themselves. So we have all these, not huge amount, but we have those little things with Scholar, with Evan Sandin printing on them, you know, like you can have your coffee mug or your water bottle. And so that also helps them identify themselves, right? And I enjoy it very much. One of the other things that I would like to say is that the program has increased in support for the scholars and their family throughout the years, and I have witnessed that myself. And I have to add that it also increased the support for mentors, because the summer enrichment program has all these different layers, right? You help the scholars to become more aware of opportunities on campus. You bring in the families and explain what it is to have a scholar at college. I mean, many of these families do not know how to support. They want to be supported, but at the same time, I mean, in the case of my prior mentee, there was that conflict between I want you to grow, but I need you here, right? And so you need to help parents navigate that tension, right? You know, like, I do want you to grow, but who's going to take grandma to the doctor, right? Which are, you know, we're talking about issues of daily life, right? And also in the case of some of the support that we received as mentors, we have programs throughout the summer and sometimes during the academic year where we debate our own challenges as mentors, because there are things that you know and you have positive feedback and you know you're doing right, but at the same time there are issues that you may not be aware that you could improve, right? And so it's good to have that discussion about the experience with other fellow mentors, and many of them are not faculty. We have mentors from the community. We have mentors who are administrators at the university or staff members who want to be mentors. So it's a diverse pool of mentors. And one more thing I want to add, and this is part of how the program grows and fits itself. We also have past scholars who graduated, they're still in the region, and now they're mentors, which I think, you know, we're closing the loop. You guys, you are already recruited. No. You know, when I get to know that through the mentors meetings, I was like, okay, well, now we close the loop there as well. And let me tell you that these programs started with a partnership with the Hispanic Development Fund. We also got a grant, right? But primarily, it has been driven by the incredible energy and commitment of Margie. It has been, I mean, it has been incredible. I mean, it's impossible to record the amount of time and effort Margie has put into the success of this program. And as I said, as it keeps on growing, she keeps on developing herself into the leader of this very complex organization that we are creating right now, right? Because it's not just managing the mentors, the scholars, the community relationships, it's just getting it all together and organize the events, the support, the professional development for every single component. It has been incredible and amazing, and I cannot do her job, period. I cannot do it, and you talk to anyone across the board and they just tell you, you know, it's just, we all see the incredible commitment she has for the success of this program, to the point that UMKC launched recently a similar program for African American students. So we are the leading program here that tackles this issue, these important issues, right? But we're leading in, we're taking as an example of what needs to be done for the success of our students. So I think I can pass the ball now, which you will take very gently.
As you know, just from hearing from these amazing students, it's just a privilege to be able to work with them and support them. And one of the things that I think has contributed to the success of the program is the organic nature of how we've tried to empower the mentors to support the students and however the students need to be supported. So I came from maybe a more unique perspective. I didn't go through the student development, process. My master's degree is in counseling, and my work has always been in the community and in nonprofit. So when I had the opportunity to develop something that could address, the disparity, the difference in retention rates for Latinx students compared to our majority students, I didn't come from a student development model. I came from a human development model, and my supervisor at the time really emphasized the importance of these relationships being organic, and hopefully, if we do it right, being lifelong, and emphasizing that it's a mutuality. I mean, certainly we're here to serve students, but our lives are so enriched by these relationships because these students, are work hard and are motivated in a process every day. There was a mention of support. So the university has supported my time, but the programming resources have come from community philanthropic gifts. And that's what's empowered us or enabled us to do the summer enrichment program that focuses, again, on that identity, affirmation of cultural strengths, but also academic skills and some professional, lots of fun stuff with career services and that sort of thing. But it's also enabled us to add the component of emphasizing undergraduate research, which again, Dara and Belinda in particular have had the opportunity to engage in. When I started the program, there were no Latinx students in doing undergraduate research, and so looking at what the barriers are, it's just always about what are the barriers and what can we do to address the barriers. And so for many of our students, they're contributing to the incomes of their households. They're working, in addition to going to school. So, devoting the extra time that's required to do research. There just aren't enough hours in the day, but if we can offset that time with a stipend, that can help enable students. And I did a count. We have now over 20 students who have completed independent research projects that, again, helped in that launch toward graduate professional school. And what's been really interesting to me is that more than half of those research projects have been focused on the Latinx community. So it's empowering students to create knowledge, to create understanding of their own communities. I'm a white woman. It's like I didn't get how important that was and how this created an opportunity for that knowledge to be created. So that's been a really rewarding part of the experience. I guess a couple of other things that I might want to mention is, Viviana's been with me from the very beginning, and she's served as part of that advisory group that's helped us figure out how do we grow the program, how do we respond to needs, how do we support the mentors and really enable them to be of value to their students. And I think that's one of the challenges. Like Dara said, it wasn't a matter of desires, it's a matter of time. When you're working 3 jobs and you're an honor student and you're doing all these other things, even just finding the time to come connect with me, has been difficult. So I totally lost my train of thought.
Funding.
Funding. and time pressure being of value. So because students are so engaged with their lives on campus and in their families, we as mentors and program staff, we have to figure out how can we be of value to them. What we bring to the table has to really meet their needs. And so I think that's part of that organic and that unique. Yeah. And it's, sorry.
And let me add, you know, the approach to the scholar is comprehensive. We're not just thinking about academic success. Sometimes it's just all about emotional support because we all have our ups and downs. We just have more resources to cope as you grow older, right? And so being able to tell them that it's legitimate to have your ups and downs, you just need to learn which your resources are and how to play them according to the circumstance. It's important. They just don't know. They don't know that they have the resources. And we just know them because we've been through that, right? You know, nobody is born with all the resources, right? And so having the opportunity to have those conversations and help them in their emotional development is crucial because, you know, they just think of adults who have been through, you know, multiple years of schooling and have good jobs and everybody, they think that, you know, oh, well, look, the person is successful, never have a problem. They just don't know what we go through in order to get where we're at, right? And they just need to develop the resources to cope and to keep on going. And I think that having those conversations, not just, you know, maybe they happen at home, right? Because we're all successful in different ways, but having those conversations that outside the home where you can say, you know what? I've been in your shoes and here I am. We just keep on walking. So that's very important for them.
Well, just a couple points and then obviously we want you to be able to answer or ask any questions that you have. I need to give credit to our Latinx and Latin American Studies program here at UMKC. They are very important partners for us. Much of the programming we wouldn't be able to do without their support. So Dr. Torres, Dr. Irazabal, Dr. Carranza, Dr. Nomacantu have all contributed significantly to the summer enrichment program, to supporting our students with research, as well as guiding, you know, some of our programming efforts. So definitely important to give credit to them. The mention of the bilingual programming for our families, we do try to bring families to campus. And they've already talked a little bit about that programming, but we've been very fortunate through Kaufman to be able to have the equipment to support that. Oh, I also, one last point. We've been successful. Our graduation rates have, you know, are high, but I also want to share that the HDF scholarship recipients, these are students that have been awarded scholarships. So they've already been through a process, a selection process, you know, where they have been awarded the scholarship based on academic success, financial need, as well as commitment to community. And so I think it's important to understand that when we started the program, we started with students that were already advantaged in some way because they had realized academic success. And we're talking about our retention rates. We're looking at keeping students in school. So not sometimes those numbers, that data is reported as just transitioning from your freshman year into, you know, the 20th day of your sophomore year or whatever that is. We're counting all of, you know, our retention rates from year to year, you know, through graduation. So I just want to make sure we're kind of apples and apples, and I don't want to overstate the impact of the program because of the student population. But we are growing to be able to serve more students and focusing more on our first generation. So I'll start talking.
Okay. I would just add one more thing that I was planning to say, and I'm glad you said it and I didn't. Both Avanzando and the Latinx program at UMKC basically started to grow together. When I first came here, there was no such a program at all. and there were conversations that we have all these faculty members kind of in different departments and units with an interest in Latinx issues in general, but there has been no history of emphasizing that focus at UMKC. And so slowly but steadily, the pieces started to come together. And even though we have like different leaders in the Latinx program in the last few years, everyone made a very significant contribution to the program and supported unconditionally Avanzando. That was something that I could see as well. And I think now at this point, I think we're getting a little bit more of the yields from those early investment, because now we see more scholars involved in research, because now we can put together faculty and match them with research programs and research opportunities for Latinx students. We also have a better infrastructure to say, if we want to fund some research or bring students to all these undergraduate research opportunities, then I go and reach out and try to find anyone interested in these opportunities as well. So it really helped us in many ways to have these two, at least in-house programs coming together, because the support from the community, we had it from the beginning. But to see the same faces at Avanzando, at your classes, and then when we have meetings at the Latinx Studies program. So that's great.
We have about 4 minutes, so if you have a question or two.
Yes, what are your plans like moving forward? Is it going to be more just expanding on adding more students to be able to help, or like what Ms. Vito was asking was, are you thinking about maybe expanding towards the high school area? Because I know, I've worked with that area myself, and getting the students from the high school area is really essential, I think, in order to then retain them in college as well. So, what are your plans like moving forward with the program?
Good question. So in these time of budget deficits, there aren't going to be any internal resources that are going to be committed to expanding the program. So it's really about efficiency to the degree that we can. And so there was a transition. The program started in diversity and inclusion. We're now housed in multicultural student affairs in the student union. So it's a more centralized location. And MSA supports, advises many of the multicultural student organizations, including ALAS, the Association of Latin American Students. And we've been deliberate with our grant funding to do some leadership development, because ALAS has had its highs and lows in terms of engagement. And so one of the things that we're doing is partnering more closely. Now Avanzando and ALAS can collaborate. ALAS really wants to give back. They want to create opportunities for their membership to give back to the community. And so Belinda's one of the
And the coordinator of community outreach is upcoming year. And one of my personal goals is to involve our college students in the high school area and looking into working with Latinos for Tomorrow, which is a local organization that helps students with the scholarship application process. So that's some of the connections I'm looking into working with. But yeah, it's a big part of Avanzando in ALAS was having Margie as an advisor and exposing us to these leadership opportunities and wanting to give back. Yesterday we had a successful event, so we do like little things. We made these little buttons with little motivational messages, I guess, and we just want to expand that to the high school students and in little ways, because it is a lack of funding at times, and it is going to be mostly volunteer things that we do. So if we can get these little things that are small and we can print them here for free, that will let students have a daily reminder that there's students at UMKC that are willing to help them in their process from middle school to high school or whatever we can reach out to.
What about partnerships? I'm thinking we have in UC Davis, we have a program that is called Campus. That is, it was founded originally from the National Science Foundation, a big grant to bring Latinos and other minorities to science career. So we can make that contact, right? We have a program that is called UC, the Destination UC, that we can make. We are working with juntas from North Carolina. So I think that about your question, I think that probably it's time for you to start thinking what are other states doing, and maybe even come together for a conference like this and say, hey, let's make something. The connections are, juntos doesn't charge you anything to bring juntos to Missouri, or destination. You see, you can say destination University of Missouri. It's like, I think that National Science Foundation will pay for a lot of things. Partnerships like AT&T, the New York Life, they are willing to pay. We are all recognizing that we need to bring more kids to college. And yeah, I think that if you look for partners around the United States, you will be surprised. You will be surprised of how many people.
One of our shortcomings at this point is that we don't have a large Latino student population on campus yet. And so last summer precisely, I was in touch with Drs. Irazabal about, let's look for grants to develop more, Latinx students opportunities and the program at large. And many of these grants are primarily geared to Latino serving institutions. And we are so far from that denomination at this point that, you start fishing for big federal grants and you can't up until you grow your population, right? And so in my capacity, I'm very involved in faculty governance. I am been in faculty senate for a long time, and I also one of the representatives to the interfaculty council. So I get to bring my agenda to the president directly, right? One of my big concerns have been, where are our recruiting efforts being delivered to, right? Because we hear like, oh, we need more students from China, we need more students from,
but what are we doing?
And my screen is like, well, how about Raytown? Who is taking me to Raytown to recruit here, right? I mean, I've been very excited about these issues and all these fantasies about we can bring more, students from outer space. We have, an urban population that needs UMPs, which is need to reach out. And so I've been quite vocal, not very successful yet, but I'm trying,
Well, look, my advice will be look around, because not everything costs money.
No, but even for grants, I mean, whatever type of grant, if we need to build our critical core yet of Latino students on campus to actually make especially for federal funding and work a little bit below the threshold at this point. So we need to work on that.
Yeah. We are over time, so.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
That's wonderful.
It's
No,
okay.
thank you.
So let's end, but I know you have a question, so we'll stay around and answer your question. But thank you guys very much. And if you want to know more or anything, you can contact either Margie's on the website, so you can find her anywhere. And then I will make sure that the PowerPoint is available for you.
Oh, that will be wonderful.
Yeah. All right. You. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dizzy.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Bravo.